Hello, my name is Arthur Bijl and I'm the Hutton McRoberts Assistant Curator of Ottoman, Middle Eastern and Asian Arms and Armour here at the Wallace Collection. Today I want to talk about this fascinating armour set. It consists of a helmet, a shield and a single vambrace, which is the piece of armour that protects the lower arm. A set like this, with these three components, is pretty representative of armour made in 19th century Iran during the reign of the Qajars. Now when I approach a helmet like this, the first thing I do is I look to see if there are any inscriptions on the object. And as we can immediately see, in this case there are plenty, and I notice a couple of things. I've got a band of small cartouches around the rim of the helmet, and these each have inscriptions in negative space, with the background partially pierced to create this really wonderful floral pattern. These inscriptions are 8 lines from a poem in Persian. Translated, they read, "On the battlefield, what happened to that famous one? The steel helmet on his head, the armour on his breast. He let forth a cry like a roaring lion, the famous warrior, the brave paladin. On the battlefield, that famous paladin, with one attack of that skilled rider, he cut, slashed, defeated and bound the heads, breasts, feet and hands of the warriors." Appropriately, this is a poem with a strong heroic character. These verses are sometimes thought to be part of the Shahnameh, or Book of Kings, written by Ferdowsi and completed at the beginning of the 11th century. This 50,000 verse epic poem is often considered the national epic of Iran. While it doesn't appear in the verses that we attribute to Ferdowsi today, they may have been composed for one of the many renditions and reinterpretations of the Shahnameh after Ferdowsi. The inscriptions in the large cartouches on the bow of the helmet are a different story. The first thing to note is that they come in 2 different languages. Here, we've got inscriptions in Persian, like on the rim. But here we also see an inscription in Armenian. In Persian, we've got a very interesting inscription that tells us where and when the armour was made. It reads, "On the order of the Christian McRoberts, son of Mirza Bey. He," which refers to God, "in the age of the reign of the King of Iran, Sultan Muhammad Ghazi. He, on the date of 1260 Hijri. He, work of the complete master Mirza Hassan Isfahani." Sultan Muhammad Ghazi is better known as Muhammad Shah Qajar, the 3rd Qajar Shah of Iran, who reigned from 1834 to 1848. The year 1260 in the Muslim Hijri calendar corresponds to 1844 or 1845 in the Christian calendar. So now we know the year in which it was made and where, within the borders of Qajar, Iran. This is already a lot more than what we know about many of the other pieces of armour in the gallery. Unfortunately, McRoberts, son of Mirza Bey, and Mirza Hassan Isfahani are otherwise unknown, so their names by themselves don't tell us much. But we do have the Armenian inscription left to read, and it actually gives us a bit more interesting information. It reads, "He who is," again referring to God, "by the hand of McRoberts, son of Mirza Bey, in New Julfa of Isfahan. He who is, during the reign of Muhammad Shah, king of the Persians, in the year of the Lord." Now, what's strange about this inscription is that it ends in a weird way. Normally, the phrase "in the year of the Lord" is followed by a date, and since this inscription is a very loose translation of the Persian inscription, which does have a date, I was quite confused when I first saw it. Until I spotted that actually, if you look very closely, you can see that someone has carefully chipped away the numerals 1844, so that they appear to blend into the pierced floral background. Who removed the date and why is an interesting question, which we'll get to. But first, I want to point out that the Armenian inscription does give us a little bit of additional information. It tells us that the object was made in the Armenian neighbourhood of New Julfa, which is in the old Iranian capital of Isfahan. It is also slightly contradictory to the Persian inscription, in that it states that the helmet was made by the hand of McRoberts, rather than by Hassan Isfahani at the order of McRoberts. This shield is similarly inscribed with poetry and more prosaic inscriptions. Here, 2 large cartouches are inscribed with poetry from the great Persian poet Hafez, and they read, "Good news, O heart, Christ's breath is coming. For from his sweet breath, the smell of another is coming," and this refers to God. The other 2 cartouches give the same information also provided on the helmet, that it was made during the reign of Muhammad Shah and in the year 1260 Hijri. There is more heroic poetry on the rim, in part repeated from the helmet, and further information on the manufacture of the set. Here, it states again that it was made by the master Hassan Isfahani in Isfahan, and that it was made on the order of the Christian master McRoberts. The vambrace is again bilingual and doesn't give much new information, but it does tell us that the whole set was made in Jumada al-Awwal, one of the months of the Muslim calendar. This month, in the year 1260, corresponds to 18 May to 17 June of the year 1844, which lines up with what the Armenian inscriptions tell us. So, as you can see, simply reading the inscriptions can tell us an immense amount about an object, or a set of objects like here. In this case, it even allows us to tie the objects to an interesting bit of provenance. From auction records, we know that the 4th Marquess of Hertford, the alleged father of Sir Richard Wallace, purchased this armour set at a French auction of the estate of Ferdinand Méchain in January 1868. Now, Méchain was a fascinating person who travelled through Iran on behalf of the Sèvres ceramics manufactory in search of noteworthy Iranian ceramics during the 1860s. When he returned to France in 1867, he published Lettres d'un voyageur en Perse, in which he mentions not only visiting the new Julfa neighbourhood and staying there for some time, but also purchasing arms and armour before setting off for a new destination. It seems likely then that Méchain purchased this armour set then, sometime during the middle of the 1860s, when it was still relatively new. With regards to the erased inscription on the helmet, it raises the question, who erased it? One suggestion is that it was removed in order to make the set more saleable to a Western European audience, who both valued antique objects over contemporary ones and would be able to read Armenian numerals, but not the Persian written inscription of the same date. If that was the case, it would not have fooled Méchain, who could read Persian. But irrespective of the culprit of this very precise bit of vandalism, it is clearly an extremely well-made set of armour, and I hope that you will come to the Wallace collection to see it in all its glory.